Malik Nabers is in another stratosphere for me. And so really there's three reasons why I believe Malik Nabers could and should be the Titans draft pick if they get an opportunity to do it. Number one is the player himself, the physical ability, the explosive speed. It doesn't take a lot to watch the tape and see that Malik Nabers moves at a different rate than everybody else at the college level and is probably going to do the same thing at the NFL level. He can beat you deep downfield. He can get you in yak. He was the number one player you wanted to bring up PFF, highest deep receiving grade of any college football wide receiver, according to PFF, Malik Nabers. Most deep catches in 2023, Rome Odunze, then Malik Nabers. Led all receivers, according to PFF stats, in yards per route run and grade against man coverage, according to PFF. Not Marvin Harrison Jr., not Rome Odunze. Malik Nabers is the guy that won every single time in these metrics. The Titans are a team that had one wide receiver who was not on their team last year, Calvin Ridley. Is the only wide receiver on their current roster that was above average in separation created last season. They do not have a ton of guys that have the ability to get open that Malik Nabers has. So you have what I believe, special talent at wide receiver. You have a roster that needs a slot, like we've heard from Brian Callahan, needs a slot wide receiver that's explosive, a wide receiver that can create separation for Will Levis, allow him to get the ball out quicker, a young wide receiver that would now be able to grow with your young quarterback and fits into your roster not only now, but in the future. Reminder to everybody, DeAndre Hopkins has 1 year remaining on his contract. There is no guarantee that DeAndre Hopkins is with the Tennessee Titans beyond 2024. And as good as he is now, he is getting older. So we don't know what that situation is going to look like. And if you're hoping, which most young head coaches, most young general managers are, hoping to build an offense that is consistent, that can grow and develop together and have stability within your offensive core, you need to take a chance at swinging for that superstar wide receiver. They're getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars, where even a guy like Calvin Ridley is getting 92 in today's league. You are not going to spend $100 million on another wide receiver and have over $200 million invested in two players that are wide receivers, because you're going to have to pay Will Levis pretty soon. You're going to have to build around some of these veterans that are leaving. So if you want that other piece of the offensive pie, you have to get him in the draft, and you're better off doing it now when you have a chance at a potentially generational wide receiver, like a potentially superstar talent. When people look at this draft class, they say there's three that are really, really damn good. That's not what they said last year. And then thirdly, I think if you look at recent history in the National Football League, I'm not talking Corey Davis, top 5 pick. I'm not talking John Ross.
Yeah, that's no longer recent, right? 2017 is no longer recent.
Let's look at
still impactful to Titans fans.
Sure, but still no longer recent.
Let's look since 2020. There are 5 wide receivers that have been drafted in the top 10. Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. Star, 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 star. And this is an important point that I want everybody who's looking at this draft class to understand. I think we've gotten better, and I think front offices have gotten better at understanding and grading the top tier wide receiver talent appropriately. Last year, I think everybody was surprised when no wide receivers go in the top 20 picks, and they all fall to the back end of the first round. And the reality was nobody was super overwhelmed by the talent. But if you look at the guys, I mean, even the guys in the last 5 years or whatever since 2020 that have gone just outside of the first round, and it's more talents like Chris Olave. There is a reason that, like Zach, you brought up the Corey Davis class as an example that had 3 wide receivers, right? And everybody loved all of them, and not all of them worked out great. But like, can we point to the draft class that has Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle in it, both in the top 10, or a draft class that has Drake London and Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave all around the top 10? All of these guys are turning into productive 1,000-yard difference-making wide receivers. You don't see As a team like the Titans, if things go how they want to, you don't get an opportunity to get one of those guys very frequently, very often at all. And so I believe that the hit rate, and I went back just for, to entertain myself, just looked at the offensive tackles that have gone in the last 5 years as well. And most people would be surprised to know they don't work out all that frequently. There's been about one star offensive tackle go in the top 10 in the last 5 or 6 years. His name is Penei Sewell. He's an absolute monster. He's a multiple-time All-Pro and a multiple-time Pro Bowler. And yet I look at the—
And he's a right tackle.
And he's a right tackle. And I look at the list of the guys that have gone in the top 10 of the draft. Darnell Wright, Paris Johnson last year. Of 56 offensive tackles that played at least 50% of offensive snaps last year, PFF blocking grade. Paris Johnson, 46 of 56. Darnell Wright, 43 out of 56, both below league average. Charles Cross was still below league average in 2023 after being one of the worst tackles in blocking grade as a rookie. Evan Neal already out of his way out of New York. They hate him there both on and off the field. He was absolutely horrific. Penei Sewell is a stud. Mekhi Becton allowed the most sacks in football last year. Still a free agent. Nobody wants him. Nobody's signing Mekhi Becton. He was a top 10 pick at tackle as well. Jedrick Wills had an injury problem. Other than that, he's been good. Andrew Thomas had one good year and fell off the cliff last season. Before Penei Sewell, the last offensive tackle drafted in the top 10 that was selected to a Pro Bowl was Ronnie Stanley, drafted in 2016. The last All-Pro, Jack Conklin. This is not like if you draft the left tackle, you're getting some home run, especially recently. And if you look at the recent history that the league is telling you about how we draft or how we grade and draft wide receivers, the guys that are graded this highly that go in the top 10, especially top 5 conversation, end up changing offenses and changing teams. So